You're listening to the Dead Man Talking podcast, featuring Douglas Clark from San Quentin, Death Row.
You have a prepaid call from
Douglas Clark,
an inmate at the California State Prison, San Quentin, California.
Welcome to the Dead Man Talking podcast. Back in 1979, LA was shook by a series of bizarre murders, including decapitation and necrophilia. All of the victims were young women last seen on the Sunset Strip. Back in the late 1970s, Los Angeles seemed to be the serial killer capital of the world. The city was terrorized by the Hillside Stranglers, the Freeway Killers, the Toolbox Killers, the Trash Bag Killers, Rodney Alcala, and now the Sunset Strip Slayer. Eventually, a sadistic nurse from Van Nuys, Carol Bundy, confessed to the murders and added that it's fun to kill people. But Carol insisted that she was only a part of these gruesome murders. One of her lovers, Douglas Clark, was arrested and sentenced to death for the crimes. That's the story that's been told repeatedly for decades. In this podcast, we will present to you the facts of the case. You'll hear Carol Bundy discuss the crimes in her own words and learn about the lethal incompetence of the LAPD. Our goal is simple. We want the public to know the factual information of the Sunset Strip Killers case. Douglas Clark has maintained his innocence from his cell on death row for over 40 years. His story hasn't changed. There have been countless documentaries made and books written, all based on what the LAPD and the Los Angeles DA's office want the public to know. We want you to make up your own mind. Douglas Clark will share his story from San Quentin. If you have any questions, he'll answer those too. So feel free to ask anything while we put together the real pieces of evidence in the Sunset Strip murders.
Hello, my name's Doug Clark. I've been on death row in San Quentin State Prison for approximately 40 years. I've been down since 1980. Framed up by Carol Bundy as she copycatted the Ted Bundy murders of 1974. The dates are the same, the crimes are almost identical, and she verbally recreated what she couldn't recreate in person. She and her partner, John Robert Murray, better known as Jack Murray, her S&M lover, killed seven. I'm charged with 6. She was charged with 1 and convicted of it. She butchered him in their murder vehicle, the van. It's a pretty gory case. But what I want you to do as true crime buffs, I want you to think about this. Very simply, very clearly, only using known facts, you will solve this case 5 murders before it ended. I guarantee it. 5 murders, including Jack Murray's murder. He got slaughtered by his girlfriend in the van. She did time for that and died in prison. I'm not even charged with it. You'll solve this crime 5 murders early, but you'll also solve the Ted Bundy murders 30 murders early. You will do it. Your detective skills are good enough, I promise you, because anybody can do it. And both cases went on and on and on, and I'm part of the cover-up for a detective named Margaret York, wife of Lance Ito, the judge in the O.J. Simpson case. He was crying on the bench about how his wife was being criticized by Mark Furman. Oh, my poor wife. She was a dumbass. I'm telling you flat out. She killed 5 people. You'll agree. I guarantee you. There is no doubt about that. Now, who was Carol Bundy's partner? That's a question you'll have to really dig in to find out. But right now, what we're talking about is blatant lethal incompetence and the cover-up that went into it to keep Margaret York on the job. After this case, she climbed the ladder with her political pull, became the Internal Affairs Division head. That's the most dangerous cop in the whole place. She can even put the chief on trial. And then she became deputy chief of Los Angeles Police Department after they knew she had killed 5 people. She also kept Stephanie Lazarus, Crazy Eyes Lazarus, Sergeant Detective Lazarus at the LAPD. She kept that crazy broad out of prison for 20 years after they knew she murdered Miss Rasmussen. You need to look at that case, too. That's kind of interesting because had it not been for York, that woman would have been locked up 20 years before. As is, she finished her time at LAPD, stayed on the job, got arrested on the job. It's all over the crime shows. She's still doing time. She's up there where Carol Bundy died. Carol Bundy also trained a serial killer female named Dorothea Montalvo Puente. You may have heard of her, Sacramento landlady serial killer. She buried 8 people in the yard, behind and beside and in front of the house she was running. And then she threw one in the river because they ran out of places to plant them. And she got caught. She went back to prison, met up with Carol again, and they formed their situational lesbian lover thing in prison. And both of them died up there at Chowchilla State Prison. But it's clear as day, Carol Bundy taught her financial crimes, her lethal drug crimes. She got out of prison after meeting Carol Bundy, went out and committed these crimes. So you've got a lot of serial murder cases wrapped up here together. And it gets pretty ugly, including the Hillside Strangler case, which Carol Bundy called in fake tips on it. She dumped 2 of these victims in this case, Cynthia Chandler and Gina Marino, the 16 and 15-year-old stepsisters. They dropped them on the side of the freeway on-ramp to the Ventura Freeway going west. Directly across the freeway on the on-ramp going east is Yolanda Washington's corpse was found in the Hillside case. Yet the cops swore up and down they didn't even think about looking into that, and my drunk-ass lawyer in trial, he wouldn't even ask the Hillside people right next door in the other courtroom right beside ours for the copy of Carol Bundy calling in a tip on Sunny Hill for being the Hillside Strangler as a joke. She thinks it's funny to call in tips and fake tips. You're going to hear some tapes that are going to chew you to the bone. Carol Bundy bragging about how she feels about serial killings and how she'll do it again if she gets the chance. It's really creepy. And the cop that heard that buried it, told her to meet him 2 hours from now at a public restaurant. I'm surprised he didn't say, bring your guns and shoot a few people and I'll help you count the bodies. The cop's name is Kilgore, Kilgore, and they kept him on the force. After he received that call, she's saying how much she wants to kill more people. And he said, well, meet me at the public restaurant because my partner took the car and he's out to lunch. I think the whole bunch of the damn task force was out to lunch. You're going to hear an inside story here that's based on fact, stories about death row itself and other subjects, and you'll be able to call in your questions. We look forward to those. Thank you very much.
You're listening to the Dead Man Talking podcast, featuring Douglas Clark from San Quentin, Death Row.
You have a prepaid call from
Douglas Clark.
an inmate at the California State Prison, San Quentin, California.
Okay, so I'm recording now. Louise Farr put out the Sunset Strip Murders book, and it seems to be the most popular, the most distributed. So let's talk about Louise Farr. What do you know about her, Doug?
Well, first off, it's the only book at the time when it came out.
Yeah.
And she talked to me extensively for about a week when she was getting ready to slap that piece of crap together and put it out.
Yeah.
She'd done no work on the defense side because she just assumed whatever Leroy Orozco, the detective mouthpiece on the case, whatever he said was true, and Orozco said whatever Joe Bundy said was true.
Yeah.
So that's where she came at the case, and then I found out her deadline was hot approaching. She had worked on the Carol Bundy history, which was fairly good. The first about third of the book is actually fairly good. She looked into Jack Murray a little bit and didn't paint him any too rosy. But then when she came to finishing the book off and getting it on the publisher's desk,
Yeah.
at the deadline, extended deadline, she realized, oh shit, she doesn't have time to do any of this. She refused to listen to any of the similarities with the Ted Bundy book, or that even that Carol Bundy said,
Yeah.
in this book you'll find it very interesting, and that she copied that, and she didn't want to hear about the Carol Bundy links to the Hillside case where they dumped off the sisters.
Now, surprisingly enough, they brought that up on the City of Angels documentary. They brought up that they were thinking it might have been a Hillside case. Now, I was surprised that they even brought that up But Louise Farr, she is one of her and Orozco are the ones that say Carol would not have killed had it not been for Doug Clark. And then I'll take this a little further, what they did on this documentary, and we're talking about this documentary because it just came out on Hulu. And the reason why, that's so ridiculous is they're going back to Etsy Wilson's head frozen, but you were taking it in the shower every day, and she would put makeup on it every day when the fucking thing was frozen. So they're just sticking to their same crazy stories.
Let's go through what actually happened.
Yeah.
She moved into the Burbank apartment on Sunday, the 22nd of June. They went out that night together. Jack helped her move in, got her moved in. All of her stuff's there. She's completely set up, bedroom, everything. I'm not there. I'm still living over at the other place at the old apartment. Now, here's the thing. She's there. They go out at night. They get Etsy. Now, Carol says, first off, the killer only wanted blonde, so he was going to shoo away Karen Jones. That's real brilliant. You got a fixation on blondes like Jack Murray does. You shoo away a witness, drive off in the vehicle, come back and get the other one. Everybody knows that's just bullshit. She said the same thing about the sisters. He only wanted Cindy the blonde. He was just going to leave the brunette there. It's like according to Carol, there's a penchant to leave witnesses behind when actually there weren't.
Yeah.
They were doing it 2 and 2. The Ted Bundy wanted 1 on June 11th, and 1 and then 2, and then a try for 3rd on the next one. It was a clear-cut case of copying the Ted Bundy book. So anyway, you got this craziness with this head in the shower thing. They cut the head off of Etsy Wilson early in the morning of June 23rd, Monday. Okay, Jack left. Carol's there. She's putting makeup on a family that goes to bed. She makes a phone call, though, at 3:08 a.m. phone call that has to be Carol Bundy calling the old apartment. She's the only one in the new apartment. She called the old apartment to make sure that I wasn't going to drop in. She didn't want to have anybody dropping in while she's got a head in the freezer. I mean, that makes sense. So then, Tuesday and Wednesday goes smoothly. Wednesday, she goes out and buys the box to put the head in. And Thursday, they throw it in the alley. So you've got it for part of Monday when Jack left and all that thing. And then you've got it all day Tuesday. You buy she's out running around buying the box on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And the box is in the alley by Carol Bundy on it's the same thing with the bodies. When you throw something out the side, the two girls were put out of this freeway on-ramp, and even in the book, the Slater book, he even points out that there's an uphill climb, and there's first body, and then second body. It's like bombs coming out of a plane over the countryside. Well, the same thing happened with the box. So you couldn't get the box underneath the side of the Buick cab and shatter the box with the tire. So the whole thing was just blown up on her. But Farr didn't want to hear any of it. She just said, no. Tell me what it's like and all this other crap.
Yeah.
Same with Ann Rule. Same thing with Ann Rule. Ann Rule was intimate, let's say, at that emergency hotline that she and Ted Bundy worked at out in his Volkswagen. Some of the crew there said they were out there for a lunch break. But anyway, so, Ann Rule stuck by Ted Bundy. Oh, he's innocent. She's telling me he's innocent. And she went on with that for a while until it was beyond doubt guilty. And then she got really angry, and from there on, everybody she ever wrote about was guilty before they talked to her. So she talked to me because I wrote to her because she'd written the Ted Bundy, the killer next door, beside me. The killer beside me is her book. And it's a bunch of bullshit, but it's good and tough on Ted. The problem with that is neither one of these women wanted to discuss any of the reality of the cases.
No.
I didn't even know Carol Bundy when I'm supposed to have been recruiting her, according to Louise Farr, to be a killer. It was just astounding. So,
and that's something
basically. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and that's something that's very important. When I was watching this documentary,
your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Okay.
When I was watching the documentary, something that really struck me is every time they talked about the apartment, the timeline they were talking about the apartment, you didn't even live there. And the public doesn't know that. You didn't even live there at the time that they say this shit was going on.
Yeah. I didn't live with her in Van Nuys when it was going on, and I didn't live with her in Burbank when it was going on. And I was clear out of town. I was up here 380 miles away north of San Francisco at my brother's wedding over the weekend when Jane Doe 18 was murdered. Now, this is the one on tape. Carol Bunny's telling these cops she's leading around by the nose. Well, Broda said right off, I don't have anything on Clark. Help me build a case on Clark. And she said, okay, but don't talk about Shannon Orris and her. She wanted that completely blanked out.
Yeah.
The 11-year-old girl. She didn't want to go to prison with an 11-year-old girl's molestation on her rap sheet.
Yeah.
So they said, okay, yeah, fine. So they suppressed all of the Shannon Orris crimes by her taking her to the girl to Jack Murray in the van and all that other stuff. So the main thing was, by the time I moved on, and both landladies at both ends, the old apartment and the new apartment both agreed, I moved out, of the Van Nuys. I left the Van Nuys apartment and I moved in on the 27th Friday, the day after the heads found in the alley.
Yeah.
So, but the fun thing though is we have this blog of death talking about a bunch of nurses who were working with Carol who said she was painting up the heads of the faces and heads and doing pigtails on them and everything of elderly patients, some of them in a coma, at her hospital work, making them look really gaudy and weird.
Yeah, and they were hospice patients who were on their way out.
Yeah. And so, and she had lidocaine, injectable lidocaine in her nightstand with bullets, handcuffs, Shannon's garter belt, and a vibrator in her nightstand by her bed. Lidocaine is the weapon of choice in the 1980s of serial killer nurses and doctors. They're all over the damn place. You give it an overdose of lidocaine, it makes it look like a heart attack. The drug dissipates right away, and they just write it off as a heart attack. And I tried to get the hospital to look through the records of deaths while Carol was on duty, and they tried to get the jail to make it so I couldn't send any mail, couldn't get any mail, couldn't do any phone calls, and couldn't visit with media.
Oh, my God.
That's the way you investigate, Okay, now I want to point out, though, very strenuously that Louise Farr and Ann Rule both were given data on airtight alibis. Airtight. For the Charlene Anderman attack, I was riding my motorcycle. I was at the Hello Doll. Jane Bailey and her husband, the New Zealand couple, they were leaving, and I said, well, it was like a Bon Voyage party, but it was unofficial. And I was there, and we were sort of acquainted and friends, and I wrote her a $20 check as a Bon Voyage trip, and everybody knows it. The bartender, Kenny, all kinds of people. Charlene Anderman was being attacked down in Hollywood at that time, way over the hills.
Yep.
Somebody in a car took her, and stabbed her up on the sidewalk. Charlene Anderman thought at first she was attacked in a motel. The cop that came up, what happened? Where was it? It was in a motel. Second, it was in a green Pontiac. Third, it was in a blue Ford Country Squire station wagon with the fake wood paneling on the side. Okay? She was high on heroin, alcohol, and PCP. But even then, even though they had Jerome Van Houten for that crime and 3 other women he attacked also the same way, but they didn't stab them, they decided to turn her around and use her on me because they needed some evidence. They kept saying, we don't have anything on Clark except Carol talking. Okay, so I said, look, I'll show you the alibi evidence. You can talk to these witnesses. I named them. I said, now, the first murders, Margaret Comer, June 1st, absolute cover. I was with Sissy Buster. I just met Eleanor Sissy Buster at the Viking Bar at 9:30. She was with her friend Carol Ledoux. I didn't know which one I was going to charm because I wanted to rent a room is what I wanted. I'm looking for a divorcee with a house, and I'll rent a bedroom from you. I wasn't going to spend a whole bunch of money on rent and stuff. I'm flying back and forth to see my high school sweetheart in Indiana, and she's coming out here to meet my parents. We're going to get married. Tommy, that's Tommy Hughes. And I said, okay. So I'm saving money. I'm just kind of a vagabond. I've been doing that off and on since 1970 when I got out of the Air Force. But anyway, so here's the thing. I had this airtight alibi with Sissy Buster, her friend, their downstairs neighbors, parked the bike there, was chaining it to the gas meter protective rack, and woke them up. He looked out the window. I'm apologizing, and Sissy's yelling at him, don't bother with those lesbians. And I said, oh, God. I immediately knew I was involved with a kind of a bigot. But anyway, so we went upstairs and had sex, and just like Carol, 2 kids in the other room. Carol had 2 boys. Sissy Buster had a daughter and son in the other room. Now, what kind of these women banging these guys are taking them home on the night they met, and let's go have sex and then stay over and rent the room to you. You see what I mean? But that's exactly what Carol did when I met her. That's exactly what Sissy did on June 1st. The night of June 1st, and June 31st, May 31st and June 1st, the morning of June 1st, I had an airtight alibi. And I mean airtight. Sissy was about 250 pounds, and I was underneath her, folks. You know what I mean? Upside down underneath her doing my magic, and she's just going wild. And she even said that's the best sex she's ever had in her life, and she told her friend on the phone that in the morning. I'm laying here just listening, and she's talking to her friend on the phone, telling her all the details. So anyway, so I moved in then. I wrote the check on her belly, my wallet on her belly, and I wrote the $30 a week. I said, okay, fine. So I was rented there. But, oh, wait a minute. You were downtown kidnapping Marnette Comer and murdering her and taking her all the way to the hills on the front fender of the motorcycle, strapped over it like a deer? You know, it's insane.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let me ask you, I have to ask you obvious questions because this is for the listeners, of course. Why weren't these people called to court?
The drunken bum. Here's the thing. That floor had entirely wall-to-wall corrupt ex-DA judges. Ron George was next door doing the Hillside case. He was an absolute right-wing zealot. I got this bum, and he had Ricardo Torres. He had Carol's case in there, and then he should have never had my case in there. So they assigned my case down there. I walk in, here's the drunken bum, showing up. And the first thing he says before we do anything, Keith Maxwell, he says, Your Honor, I want to change Mr. Clark's plea to guilty by reason of insanity. And he's been on the case for over a year. He hasn't mentioned any of this shit. He said, oh, yeah, we're preparing the defenses, the alibis, the whole damn thing. Oh, no, I want to plead him guilty. I'm not a violent person, but I would have liked to knock that drunken bum out. His eyes are all glassy, his face is red, white hair sticking out all over the place. He looked like, what's his name, Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, was sticking out. Only this guy, he was older and he was drunker. Okay, so I just said, this is insane. They find these bottom feeders like Max Keith. He was in the Manson case. He did the same damn thing. They needed a lawyer to come in and take over Leslie Van Houten's case. Right in the middle of the trial, her lawyer died. Oh, we can get Max Keith. He'll do anything. They pull him in there. He says he's ready to go.
Now for people who aren't familiar with Max Keith, he was the reason why Leslie Van Houten was given a second trial and why she was freed in the mid-70s. She was freed and was a free woman for a year, 2 years, whatever long it was. But it was because of his incompetence that got Leslie Van Houten a new trial.
He should have been disbarred right then for what he did.
Yeah.
For taking over a case without even being ready. The trial was going on at the time. So anyway, these judges that are corrupt, they need somebody to babysit the case, work through it. He was making $800 a week. Okay? No, wait a minute. I'm sorry. He was making $800 a day.
That was a shitload of money back then, man.
Yeah, and a lot of money in 1980. And so they said, well, you need a co-counsel, Mr. Keith. So here's a deputy DA, fresh out of the stink isn't even off her. She walks into the courtroom, literally. She's trying to go into private practice. She doesn't want to rent an office. She doesn't want to hire a secretary. She wants to just sit on her ass and make $650 a day. Oh, yeah, you can work with Max Keith and tell us everything he's thinking, everything he's doing, and your only job is to make sure he shows up in court sober enough to stand up. And there were days he had to hang on to the backs of the chairs. There were days he fell asleep 3 times while I was on the stand, and I finally said, wake up, Keith. God damn it, wake up, you old drunk. And everybody saw it,
And this is a man fighting for his life. I mean...
Yeah. So when I was fighting to get pro-per, trying to get, if they're not going to give me a lawyer, I have to try to do this myself. I have to try to subpoena these witnesses. The judge gave me a roll of dimes and said, that is the entire defense budget. You don't get to bring any witness from Florida. We need it from New Zealand. I wanted to just have a telephonic conference with the witnesses from the...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I wanted the woman from the barn, her husband, and they were in New Zealand where they live. And I said, well, if you won't pay for their deal, let's at least find out what they have for the record. I wanted to have their testimony on record, not for the jury, because he wouldn't allow that. No, we're not even going to allow a phone call recording to show what they would have said. that you couldn't have killed Marnette Comer.
Yeah.
So then we go on to Gina Moreno and Cynthia Chandler. Carol just tells him, Cynthia Chandler and Gina Moreno were sitting on a bus bench across from the Screen Actors Guild on Sunset Boulevard at 3 o'clock. And I was thinking, well, what were the squirrels doing in the tree? Were they humping? Add a few more details that don't have any. But Roscoe says because she knows about the Screen Actors Guild being there and the bus bench being there, and it's 3 o'clock, she must be telling the truth. Wait a minute. It's all uncorroborated crap.
Absolutely.
She needed to move it to 3 o'clock because I was at work until 1:30 that day, clear over in Burbank. She had to have time for me to get off work, get on my motorcycle, drive to her house, borrow her car, drive to Hollywood, and find these girls that I don't even know are there, right?
Yes.
And it's Cindy, a girl I know. She's met Carol Bundy at her apartment.
Exactly. That's why you had. That's why you had. Let me put a little bookmark there really quick. This is why you had Cindy's phone number in your phone. Your phone list.
She had mine.
Yeah, exactly. So it would be.
She had mine and I had hers. But the thing was, it was for Mindy Cohen, where she was staying at the time, where her stepsister, 15-year-old Gina, got raped.
Yeah.
They were staying with Mindy Cohen. But actually, that was, Mindy Cohen and Mark Gottesman. Now, here's how they listed this. And Louise Farr would.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Louise Farr and the cops on this case wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. Mindy Cohen was 19. She'd been Mark Gottesman's lover for 3 years. Do the arithmetic. That's a felony. So she's up there banging this lawyer. Her and Richard Lieber, the FBI reports we have say he's a white slaver, sends girls to the Middle East, and you never see him again. Blue-eyed blondes are very popular over there. So these two bums have a houseboy, Richard Lieber, and they have his slut, Mindy Cohen, for the lawyer. They go down to Sunset Boulevard in the evening on, what was it? I think it was the 1st.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever day it was a weekend apparently. They go down there, trolling for some underage pussy for the lawyer. He likes them young.
Exactly.
Like 19-year-olds.
And let's really make this clear. This was Rod Stewart's attorney. So we're not talking about some small-time lawyer here. We're talking about someone who knows the system well and knows the people in the system. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and there are people that said they were at the party and saw these girls at the party at Rod Stewart's house or otherwise at this guy's house. Now, here's the thing. They came up there. 16-year-old Cindy is a pretty savvy girl. She passes herself off as 19, calls herself a hitch hooker. She's a cool girl, though. I met her earlier, and she was smart. She told me she was University of California, Los Angeles at Northridge. I said, okay, that's cool. So anyway, we're kind of acquaintances a bit. That's why we had swapped numbers. Now, Gina Moreno I never laid eyes on. She's 15. She's an Italian girl through and through, beautiful brunette. And all the pictures of her are gorgeous. Mark Gottesman, the lawyer, Rod Stewart's lawyer, sees her and says, oh, yeah, good picking there, Mindy Cohen, baby. Let's get this girl in bed. So they take her to bed, and the white slaver takes blonde, blue-eyed, beautiful Cindy over to his house, trying to talk her into going, let's go to Mexico, get you some papers, and shoot you over to Morocco, and then Lebanon, and then Iran or Iraq, whatever. Yeah. And you'll be in a whorehouse for the rest of your life. That kind of thing. He doesn't tell her that. He says, oh, you're going to do fashion shooting. Yeah. That's what the usual line is. And the FBI has a report on this asshole. He's an importer of cocaine, and he's an exporter of young, beautiful, blue-eyed, blonde California girls. It says for law enforcement only at the top of every page. Well, they fucked up and gave, the defense a copy of that thing on Mark Gottesman. And I tried to get her to look at that at least and ask Margaret York, Delancito's wife, the judge in the OJ case. His wife is the bimbo that fucked this case up and killed 5 people. I said, just ask these people, why didn't you pick up the phone and call sex crimes unit? Why didn't you do something and say, hey, Mark Gottesman, you got a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old off the Sunset Boulevard. Why didn't you call Child Protective Services and say, hey, sneak on up here. We'll keep them here until you get here. No, he said, let's get this brunette in the bedroom and rape her. She was a virgin.
Exactly.
Stanley Glick, a friend of Mark Gottesman, said in the record on the police report, flat out, and Keith never called him to trial. In the record police report, he said that he came over to the house. Gina was crying. He said, he was asking her what's wrong. She said, well, I guess I'm not a virgin anymore. And she was waiting for her sister to come back so they could take off running. Now, if you stop and think about it, Mark Goslin's going to lose his money, his house, his career, his license to practice law if they go straight to the cops about that. And Richard Lieber's going to be, talking to the feds again if they go straight to the cops. There were two people right there that wanted these girls dead.
Exactly.
So that's why they were looking so intently at these people. Then they got more clues, and they said, okay, it's not these two suckers, and, these, blatant criminals that killed them. It was somebody else. But they killed them by, not saying, hey, you're here, you shouldn't be here, let's get you over to your parents. They said, no, I want to screw this virgin and send that other girl to Lebanon to live in the whorehouse for the rest of her life. It's just the depraved assholes had the company, in their conspiracy. They had Margaret York and her partner Helen Kidder.
Of course, and no charges ever filed, no second look, nothing, because
no, they didn't even investigate.
Yeah.
They shut it down airtight, and then suddenly, after they interview these two people, their stories become exactly what York wants to hear. And it keeps growing every time.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
And then they ID positively my voices to Doug Clark calling when Mindy Cohen gets a phone call. I said, wait a minute. I'm not, I got a good IQ. I'm not stupid. I'm not going to call some two people and give my name to Doug Clark investigate these murders. That's Jack Murray's voice interpretation bullshit, but he can't interpret my voice. He hasn't heard it enough. The thing I want to point out, too, about all of this about Mindy and Cindy, Gina and Cindy being down on Sunset Boulevard, and from there on, their lives were ended. It's effectively, it's called a sine qua non in Latin, and the cops and lawyers and doctors like to use Latin to make themselves look important. It means that if you got a car with an engine, a transmission, and a differential, if any one of them's gone, you ain't gonna go. This case wouldn't have killed Gina and Cindy, if anybody, like Mindy, had said, no, bring him up there, but you're not going to rape him. I'm not going to join you in a three-way. I'm calling social services and having them taken away and go home. They'd have been saved. If anybody had done anything right, the whole damn time, and I notified the Chandler Marino family, the husband and wife, Marino is the stepfather, I notified them and sent them a whole bunch of this paperwork that I was trying to get to them, and they ran this stalk up or whatever and said, he's harassing us. I said, good God Almighty, if I was their father, or if I was their sibling, I would have said, I want those two bastards in prison.
Absolutely.
And Dudley Gordon and then the other two, this rapist daft lawyer. But anyway, it irks me. And I kind of vowed to myself through the ages, I'm going to get out of here, and then someday down the road, I'm going to pay a visit to that son of a bitch lawyer and kick him in the nuts so bad he'll never rape anybody again. I mean it. I was going to knock him out and then give him about 10 good swift kicks right in the crotch.
No, it's all connected. It's all very, very purposeful and connected. It's disgusting.
One more alibi we got to go through.
Okay.
That Farr wouldn't touch. Okay. Jane Doe 18. Carol calls her water tower. I worked 4 years and got my license, stationary engineer's license after the 4-year limit, and with water and power. I work all the time around boilers, water towers, oil tanks, the whole works. It's not water, it's oil. It's a big oil tank up on a hill. The Dotson couldn't even get up there, and they're saying that this girl was laid on the hood of a straight four-cylinder, not a V4. And this girl was laid on the hood, and the car was shaking back and forth so hard it simulated intercourse. The stuff she says, and Orozco just sits there like a little bird in the nest with his head back, mouth open, and waiting for mommy to dump some worms in it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Orozco. Anything Carol spits in his mouth, he's going to swallow it. So I'm sitting there saying, wait a minute.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Carol's on the tape saying, well, the last one, she says, you can forget about it because, okay, now pay attention. Number one, he won't tell me, that's where she's getting her information supposedly, he won't tell me anything about it, and I wasn't there, so you'll just have to forget about that one because you've got him on all the others, meaning Margaret, Comer, Cindy, Gina, Dixie, and Karen. You see? Yeah. She's been spewing that bullshit, thinking, okay, we got him on those. He's got an airtight fucking alibi. Sorry for the language. He's got an airtight alibi for Jane Doe 18. He was gone the whole weekend. Up here at my brother's wedding, right above San Quentin in Novato.
Yep.
the whole weekend on my motorcycle. That's where I was calling to get Cindy, because I'm coming up the Pacific Coast Highway, I think, with that beautiful blonde on the back of the bike in the wonderful weather. I'm calling Mindy's number to get Cindy to say, hey, want to go on a weekend trip? I can spot you $100, for the weekend. That's not enough money for anything, but for her, if she's comfortable. So, and it would have been a ball. That would have been fantastic, but she's been dead since June 11th.
Yeah.
I'm calling her in the end of August, what is it? Right, July. Yeah, end of July. The last weekend in July. Sorry, this COVID brain is really a pain, I'll tell you. But Carol's being interviewed on 11th of August, and she's talking about the last weekend, the time they killed her. Oh, no. The last time, she knows nothing. Okay. Hawkus, Jacquees, is a cop that was interviewing her a little bit with Broda, the one that says, I don't have anything on him, build a case for me. So Hawkus interjects a question, and Carol doesn't like Hawkus butting into her relationship with Broda.
Yeah.
So, and mind you, she offered him a blowjob at the end of the interview on tape.
Yeah.
Broda. Okay. So Hawkus interrupts with a question, and Carol says, I'm done. I know something. Listen, they're going to like this. She starts spewing all these details about Water Tower, the one that he won't tell her about, that she wasn't there. All of a sudden, the car's rocking back and forth with intercourse on the hood. He met her here, he met her there, he did this, he's got that. All of a sudden, all these details come out of a case where she said, I don't know anything about it, and I can't help you with it, so just forget it. And all of a sudden, just to distract Broda away from Hawkus, asking her questions that actually make sense. It's right on tape. You can hear all that. We're going to put it on the podcast.
Yeah.
So I said, this is just a fucking circus. The whole damn case is a disaster. Now, all I could do, pro per, was hope to get a hung jury. And from what I heard, I think it was, Press talked to a juror named Duarte, or I can't remember the last name, Hispanic guy, younger guy. Anyway, they talked to several of them, and they said that the first vote was 7-5 for guilt. That means 5 for not guilty, and they had one ringer in there that was a sheriff's department dispatcher who, during jury selection, blurts out, my nephew, he's being treated badly by the cops and the DA. Would you please help him get out of jail? He's a real nice boy. He's innocent. She's begging the DA on this case, the judge on this case, and the cops sitting right there at Roscoe to look into her nephew's case. And she may as well just add, by the way, I'll guarantee to look guilty for you.
Exactly.
Max Keith accepted that juror with 3 peremptories. He could have gotten rid of her for cause.
Yeah.
She's a sheriff's department employee. The judge should have thrown her off automatically. Keith should have thrown her off, and Keith wouldn't even come near me at this point. This is during jury selection. He said Penny Watson, the DA puppet, on our side, supposedly. Yeah. He set her down beside me so that I wouldn't knock his ass out. And believe me, I was sorely tempted, but I'm not that kind of guy normally. But when your life's on the line, you get mad. So anyway, I said, okay, this has got to go pro per. Try to get at least a few of these jurors' attention and get the Ted Bundy book in there, get the alibi evidence in there, and then I get the bombshell when I am pro per that I'm not going to have any search warrant. Subpoenas for witnesses. No cops. I can't subpoena York and Kidder. Now, it's very important, real quick here, we're running low on time, but I want to make sure that your viewers and your listeners know you are going to solve this case in about the next 3 minutes. Okay, if you want to do that. Want to do it?
Yes.
What do you think, Dave?
Let's do it.
Go ahead?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. They get a call on June 12th. It's a Thursday, nice and warm, beautiful day in the valley. They get a call to Northeast Division. There's a double murder down here on an on-ramp to the freeway. York is Margaret York. She's the soon-to-be the besotted fiance and lover and then wife of Lance Ito. He's a deputy DA at the time, but he quickly becomes a judge. He does the O.J. case, and he screwed that right off the rails. So anyway, she and her partner, Helen Kidder, show up at the crime scene. They're looking down off the side of the freeway. It's a steep embankment. They're looking at 2 bodies fairly far apart. It's the 2 girls, semi-clad and dead. They've been dead 24 hours, almost on the dot. So they're looking at this, and the coroners show up, and the SID, Scientific Investigation Team, show up, and they take the bodies away. She goes back to her office. They quickly find out that it's a Raven 25, model P as in Paul 25. and they get a list of gun buyers in the immediate area. This short list of the immediate area ones was about 5 men and 1 woman. The woman bought hers and picked them up 3 days before Marnite Homer was killed with one of them. 3 days before June 1st.
Wow.
She picks up those guns and she bought 2 of them. And York says, check the men, but don't check the woman's guns because women don't do this kind of crime.
Unbelievable.
Okay?
Yeah.
You just saved Exie, Karen, Jane Doe 18, Jane Doe 28, and that red bastard Jack Murray. Okay, so, if you're going to save the 4 girls, you got to save Murray because that's a sad part of the way this works. So, that would have saved him. But no, that's not bad enough. The next day, she gets a phone call from a woman talking about the wounds. Head shot and body shot on Cindy, 2 through the head, in and out on Gina. That right there, mathematically, they didn't even say they were shot in the newspapers. To think not only shot in the head, but shot twice, both bullets stayed in, shot in the head twice on Gina, and the bullets went through, and once in Cindy, and both stayed in, and once in the chest. If you're throwing dice and you want to roll a 12, you've got to roll a 6 the first time. That's a 1 in 6 odds.
Yeah.
You've got to throw a 6 on the second die. That's a 1 in 6. So 6 times 6 is 36. If you do the math on these things that she told them, the whole story on what she told is on the tape that Betsy did. They're looking at about 100,000 to 200,000 to 1.
Yep.
Then you add this. Directly across the freeway is Yolanda Washington's scene where she was found on the on-ramp going the other way. She's on the on-ramp going east, and these girls are on the on-ramp going west of the Forest Lawn Cemetery Drive, where it goes east and west onto the freeway. A lot of big names up in that Forest Lawn, huh?
Yep.
Yolanda Washington's at the hills. She's a Hillside Strangler victim.
She was the
Carol
first.
She tells them on tape. She says flat out. She says, I called in a tip on this Hillside case, told them Sunny Hill was the Hillside Strangler. This is back in 79. Okay, she did that. They didn't even look to get the tape of her. They didn't even get the report. Why is this woman calling in false tips on the Hillside Strangler case? They haven't got enough to do. They're running around in panic trying to catch these guys. Okay?
Exactly.
You there, Dan?
Yeah,
okay,
I'm here.
I thought maybe they because your money was low on the account. Okay, so York and Kidder aren't even told, they say, that right across there is the Hillside Strangler victim. Now, Orozco pipes up in the Slater book and a couple other places. Oh, yeah, right away I called him and told him there's a Hillside Strangler victim right across the way. Why didn't they tell the defense this?
Yeah.
Orozco hid that. That would have been critical, along with the tip that she made on Sunny Hill. She's fascinated by the Hillside case. Now she's fascinated by this case. She's fascinated with Ted Bundy. She writes to him in prison. She's in jail, he's in prison, and then she's writing the guy. He didn't answer her. He knew she was a fat crap crazy dingo. But anyway, so she's got the Ted Bundy book. She says, read the Ted Bundy book. Sends the lawyer, the drunken lawyer, a letter saying, get this Ted Bundy book. Ted Bundy, The Killer Next Door by Stephen Wynn and David Merrill. They won't do it.
No.
We're not going to be running around buying books for you, Clark, said the bitch. If you've seen the movie Scarface, his wife, the blonde, bimbo, coke snorting bitch, that's Penny Watson. She looks like she's been cutting her hair that style just to look like the movie. She's also an ex-detective that became a private attorney so that people like Torres and Judge Gordon Ringer would have people to assign and then say that's the end of that case. They'll never hear anything in court. So anyway, so you get this case and you say, wait a minute. This case literally is solvable because she called up. She's got a distinctive voice. She's on the phone on June 14th, Saturday, and they have the recording. It's funny that the recording's shorter than the transcript. And then they say, oh, yeah, we transcript.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
They didn't make any notes. They didn't say, well, the first half of the phone call isn't on here because we weren't recording. Yeah, that's real smart. But then they don't sit down and take any notes. There's 4 cops involved in that. Westbrook, who was the worst, he barks at Carol Bundy and gives her a hard time. He says, oh, well, I'm the one supposed to solve these crimes, not you.
Hey,
you already know she's involved.
Yeah, on the documentary last night has the Kilgore recording A lot of it, not all of it, but it does have the Kilgore recording on it. They play it.
Oh, good. The one about it's fun to kill people and she'll do it again if she gets out.
Yeah, do you want your man today? Yeah. That bullshit.
Yeah. Now, there's another part of that I hope is on there. She says that she's tried to kill herself before.
No.
Mostly both of her parents committed suicide. She's been playing with the suicide game all her life. I tried to kill myself before, and if this...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
If this doesn't do it, in other words, the death penalty for this case for her, if this doesn't do it, she'll take herself out and kill herself. And I'm thinking, why didn't you do it before? You've got lidocaine to kill people in your dresser nightstand. You've got all those syringes. You've got a car you could crash into the freeway overpass. You know, get off your ass, bitch, and do it. You know, the world would be better off without her.
She wanted attention. That's why she went to the hospital. After she killed Jack Murray, she went to the hospital and bragged about everything her and Jack were doing.
The Slater books, analysis of Carol Bundy and her psyche and her testosterone levels and everything else is just astounding. I recommend it. I never knew it. I just got this book in a couple of weeks ago from you, Dave, and it's just astounding. There's all kinds of stuff in there we didn't have.
Absolutely.
I'll call you right back, okay?
Call me back.
Okay, we're running into overtime. My neighbor gets the call next. We have to move the phone in real fast. But here's the thing. That voice on that tape, Frodo, when he first met Carol Bundy on tape, he says, "Oh, yeah, I recognize your voice, and your voice is very familiar to me." He's been listening to that tape of her talking about the crimes, proving she's involved. Instead of saying Carol on the tape, Westbrook should have said, look, she was worried. She didn't want the tape released. She used names on there that she worried were going to get her caught and the killer would come after her. They should have said, Carol, your voice is very distinctive and I have no alternative, but within 24 hours, I have to release this tape to the media. It's a lie, but you're allowed to lie to these people, especially when lives are involved. You people would have... If you don't come in and tell us, you know who's going to be killing you. The next news we're going to get you is a toe tag at the morgue.
Exactly.
Please, state life, come in, do the right thing, tell us who this guy is. You could have done that after you fucked up on the gun sale receipts and didn't check her, and after you're sitting there running in circles on the phone call. Then you get the box with the head in it after X and Karen get killed needlessly because you screwed up. You get the box with the head in it, and you get the witness that sold it to Carol. She came in with black lace gloves, fringe around the wrist, cherry top on a hot day in Bermuda shorts, big bug-eyed glasses, and she buys it, pays cash, puts it in a bag, and takes it away from the Newberry store. The witness is Shirley Wardzinski. If you're listening, Shirley, you are the best witness ever. A cop could not ask for a better witness than you. You remembered her gloves, her handling of the box with gloves, her handling of the money. They had her again, and they still screwed it up.
Exactly.
I should have told them the glasses on the driver's license from the gun purchase receipt, they had her picture on that, they had her home and work phone numbers. You could have picked up the phone and...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You could have pretended you were Avon calling and checked her voice. You could have saved 5 lives this way. Well, 4.
Exactly.
I think Jack Murray got exactly what he deserved from his vicious psycho girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, that van looked like a chainsaw massacre in an easy bake oven.
Now let me ask you, Laurie.
Anyway.
Let me just throw something in real quick because I know we're tight on time. The point is this: if you think Doug is guilty and you think this is all true and everything, ask yourself what about the mistakes of not arresting Carol when you could have? So if you think that the cover-up is all bullshit, ask yourself why. Just like what Doug is saying, why wasn't she picked up all the times they had her?
Exactly. Now, here's the quick punchline for the cover-up. York and Kidder were being used by Chief Daryl Gates of the LAPD. They were pushing the fact that, hey, look, we've got 2 female detectives. We're not an all-white, all-male, homophobic bunch of Nazis. We got 2 women here that are really good detectives, and these 2 just screwed up and killed 6 people.
Exactly.
You can't have that happen because they're being pushed as the lead-in for the Cagney and Lacey television show.
Yep.
It was being run up in 79, 80. It's being filmed before this trial was over. They were filming episodes of Cagney and Lacey based on York and Kidder. They can't have York and Kidder trotted out and say, oh, by the way, Cagney and Lacey, you're going to do that. You're going to do that show where these two morons kill 6 people, or are you not going to do that part of the story?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? They had to cover their asses. They couldn't let that whole thing blow up, because that would have been, instead of a plus for LAPD, it would have said, "Oh, you got girl detectives, yeah." Kind of like what was it, Charlie's Angels running around doing their makeup and shaking their tits. These were really dumb broads.
Yeah.
They hired them because they're dumb, gullible. They'll do what they're told. York had a high school diploma and no education. When she did finally go to college, she took administrative courses, not forensics or criminology, because those were too hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Lance Ito married a dumb bimbo, and he didn't even get a good-looking one, for God's sake. Old horse-faced Peggy York.
And we don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time. Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, we don't have a lot of time to get into anything now, but keep in mind, we're going to get to the Lazarus case as well.
Oh, God, yes. The Lazarus case. And then the, what's her name? Elaine Graham.
Yep.
The girl that Orozco screwed up for 20 years didn't solve the case of a thrill killer because, I haven't heard the DNA. What a moron. Jesus. And he keeps calling it D&A. That's how stupid he was. He was on the force as a detective for 8 years while DNA was coming on the market. And then for all the time in his retirement, he kept saying, I wish I could have solved that case. No, you could have solved the case if you weren't a friggin' moron.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Guy,
put him in court beside the DA, sit beside the DA, and he was sitting there because that way he can't be called as a witness.
Exactly.
He's confidential to the district attorney to sit beside him.
Exactly.
All the other cops could be subpoenaed, and they didn't want Orozco on the stand. He is a total moron, I swear to God. So anyway, and remember too, all of the 2 victims that were had semen on them were Cynthia Chandler, A positive blood donor of the guy who put it on her, A positive. Same with Exie Wilson's throat, A positive. I'm O positive. And all of a sudden they just say, well, no, you can't do DNA. For 40 years we've been denied access to that, to test the DNA on that.
Exactly.
If LAPD tried to say it was too old, I said, hell, you're testing DNA on the Egyptian mummies. You're doing it on a...
Oh, exactly. I've seen DNA from crimes from the 60s and 50s. That's bullshit.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant. You can go clear back, and it's getting better all the time. Why haven't they tested the DNA? Because it's going to point right to Jack Murray. And remember, semen only.
Exactly.
I have not had a vasectomy. I'm pretty damn sure they were hiding the fact that Jack had.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to run around and make any babies with all these bimbos he was raping them. You got to read up on that guy in that Critical Visions book by David Slater. God,
excellent book.
Jack Murray.
Excellent book.
Okay.